what would you recommend as an appropriate communication means? Because what you've said so far, there seems to be some kind of lapses when it comes to communication. What will you recommend as an appropriate communication means of inviting a suspect to the EFCC office, for instance? As you remember, of course, the case of a reported case of someone who died in detention of the EFCC, but of course the EFCC boss himself has come out to clarify that he didn't actually die in the EFCC custody, but on his way to the hospital.
Now the EFCC is a body made out of enactment of a law, and is a body corporate so it's an institution that if you want to invite, naturally, you should invite the person by a written letter. Now, when you have that letter written to the suspect, and the suspect comes to your custody, the moment that suspect is taken into custody by either the FCC or any of the anti-graft agencies, they become a product of that agency until such a person is taken on bail, either on bail or released on self-recognizance or whatever. So they must follow that procedure. Now, the person who died, if that person went under the invitation of the EFCC cannot lay claim to say, even if the person died on the way to the hospital, as said by the chief of EFCC, it does not take away the fact that that person was in the custody of the EFCC as at the time that it happened, because before it happened, the man was not taken on bail. So he's still the product, he's still within the confines of the EFCC. Now, these are part of the things that do happen. I know of a situation, for instance, I know recently in Enugu, where, they got, the EFCC was in need of a suspect, so they said, and they invited the shorty. Without anything, they detained the shorty, not even giving the shorty the opportunity to go get the suspect which they were looking for. But the suspect was not even missing. He was not invited. But they just went ahead to say, held back the shorty. Whatever that meant, it was unlawful. It's not the right way to do things. Now,
I presume that you have your facts concerning that, of course, but trying to look at other developments, let me ask you this. What reform measures do you think should be put in place with regards to investigations of petitions by anti-graft agencies, the EFCC for one?
Now, the kind of reforms, there's a lot of reforms that needs to come into place. First and foremost, now investigations, this country, we play a lot of politics. Therefore, you see people write petitions to the 3 anti-graft agencies. There's the same petition, one to EFCC, one to ICPC, one to Code of Conduct Bureau, all in the same letters and wordings. At the end of the day, it's still taxpayers' money that you use for investigating all of this. If the 3 agencies will have to investigate those issues at the same time, you're spending taxpayers' money in 3 different ways doing the same thing. Now, what I believe to curb that situation, I'm not trying to foreclose whistleblowers from being part of the business, but they should go the extra mile to ensure that if you put a petition in place, for goodness sake, let us have an affidavit of yours on notice that if you give us wrong information and we spend taxpayers' money, and at the end of the day, we found out that what you just said is frivolous and there's no truth in it, you'll be liable. That needs to be done. The moment that is done, it will curb all the frivolous petitions that we have. And that is one reform that needs to take place as quickly as possible. And I join the National Assembly to ensure that they amend that act to ensure that that is a fundamental part of the act. Now, the other kind of reforms will have to also be following the rule of law. Now, the rule of law, if you're a suspect, the natural thing to do is, if you are invited by any of the agencies, you ordinarily should be given your petition to read. And in reading your petition, the petition written against you, you should know if answering to that petition, you know whether right where you see a frivolous petition. Therefore, what you need next to do is the agencies knowing clearly, doing their investigations without so much media, and finish the investigations, reduce the time of the play around it, and ensure that they have everything well packaged before coming out to take the suspect. And by so doing, they'll go a long way in ensuring that they close up those gaps, filling those gaps where people come and throw in things that are not necessary and will not help the polity in developing in helping the anti-corruption fight.
What do you think? We're going to continue along this line of discussion, and when we return, I'll be asking you some of the developments from INEC. As we know, it has released a timetable, albeit it has called it a principle rather than a timetable. Victor Che is a former lawmaker. He's going to continue with us when we return after this break. Stay with us.